Well, we pick up in this Psalm 12 where the context of the psalm is the full story of the psalm is really God keeping us and protecting us and making good to his promises to us, though we live in a world where there are precious few godly people and honest people, and where there is just an abundance of deception and oppression and godlessness and exploitation and injustice. And David has rehearsed that God will deal with this. God has actually spoken personally in verse 5 that he will rise up on behalf of the poor and the oppressed and the needy that sigh, and that he will set us in safety, that he values us and cherishes us, and that it really doesn't matter who puffs at us, who dismisses us, who scoffs us. You ever been scoffed? That's painful, okay? God really cherishes and values us, and he's going to deliver us from those people. Now we pick it up in verses 6, 7, and 8. Let's read them together. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. The wicked walk on every side, when the vilest men are exalted. Now, the essence of verses 6, 7, and 8 is that God's words, God's promises are true and reliable and absolutely safe. And those who trust in his words are absolutely safe across every generation until eternity, no matter no matter how pervasive it seems, verse 8, that the wicked are walking everywhere, trampling with impunity, it seems, on every side, when the vilest men are exalted. So vile men are risen into power, and wickedness runs free in our streets and homes and cities and towns and villages. It just seems to rule on planet Earth. But there is hope. This is not a day of despair. No, those that trust God and those that trust his words can count on the fact that his words are pure and they're powerful, they're reliable, they're dependable, they're perfect. He has never made an impure promise. The contrast of his pure words is a contrast against the fake, flattering, vanity and lying and double-hearted, double-speak of everybody else on planet Earth, okay? We're talking about corrupt words in contrast to pure words. And then verse 7 says, Thou shalt keep them, O Lord, thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. Let me address 2 different views of these 2 verses. And in honesty, I admit to you that I think in the past I've possibly mistaught these 2 verses, okay? How could they be mistaught? Well, direction is very important and context is very important, especially in the Psalms and especially really throughout the Old Testament. And sometimes even understanding the English translational direction is not always obvious, okay? The very literal sense of the King James translation often doesn't carry forward some of the nuance. And so you're left wondering, where does this direction flow and what is the precise connection? Okay, now, the way I've always heard this verse taught is that the words of the Lord are pure. That's pretty easy. As silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Now, I've heard some try to insinuate or imply that phrase is a reference to the 7 editions of the English Bible that led up to the King James Bible. Here's the big problem with that, okay? The big problem with that is to imply that God's word needed to be purified 7 times in English is to, by default, imply that it was in some way impure, okay? And that doesn't hold water biblically because God's word has never been impure, okay? It's always been perfect. His word has always been perfectly pure. The psalmist is not saying there would be a future language 1,500 years from now, 1,600 years from now, or more than that, 2,500 years from now, that it will go through 7 variations up to a 1611 King James Version. That's not what the psalmist is saying. The psalmist is using this as a metaphor that the purest of silver is that which has been run through the purification process 7 times, and it's absolutely pure. The implication being God's word has always been, from its inception, if I can use that word, and I'm not sure that's an accurate word to use, but from its inception, it is pure, and it is perfectly, absolutely pure. The second way this can be mistaught is in verse 7, thou shalt keep them. Now, if you're just looking at basic English, in a 21st century English grammatical structure, you would say, as I've said many times, that the pronoun them must refer to the closest antecedent, which would be words. The words of the Lord are pure. Thou shalt keep them. Okay, but throughout the history of the biblical text, the truest sense and understanding of this pronoun them is that it references the earlier group of people that are really the broader context of the psalm, those that are being oppressed, the poor, the powerless, the defenseless, those that have been exploited and taken advantage of, those that God is rising up to defend, and that the preservation work is God preserving his people. Now, I got to be honest with you, okay? I could be wrong, and 2,000 years of biblical scholarship could be wrong. Either way, it's powerful. It's a powerful promise. Now, God's words not being preserved is not an option, okay? Because his word is forever settled, forever established. And Jesus said, it is up that man shall live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So the idea that God's word wouldn't be preserved is not even thinkable when it comes to the biblical text. But the broadest context of the understanding of this psalm would very much support that God is preserving the generation that's being oppressed from that generation forever. God will preserve both his promises and his people, okay? So I'm simply trying to be fair to you, to let you know that there is not one view of this verse that I can land on and say 100% absolutely. What I will say is that in the last 100, give or take, years, this verse, that pronoun them, has been most attributed to God preserving his words. But in every other era and age of Christianity, and really everyone that I pick up and read and study on the subject, every great Christian voice of recent generations believes that pronoun refers to the context of the psalm and God preserving his people. So let me just put a pin here and just drive it home for a minute. God will preserve his promises, absolutely. And God will preserve you, absolutely. So either way, you're in a good place, okay? You can count on God's word. You can count on God's protection. Even though the wicked, verse 8, seem to rise up everywhere, like there's no escape. You can't get away from it. Even though we're immersed in a wicked society, we're immersed in a wicked day where the vilest men seem to rise up into power. The most wicked, vile people seem to rise up into power. If you are a God follower, if you are trusting in him, go back to the first 2 words of chapter 12. Help, Lord. Okay? No matter how much wickedness is around you, you can look up and trust in your God that he will protect you, and his promises, his words are pure and completely reliable. What a great place to land Psalm 12. You are safe with him no matter what's going on around you. So live bright, live loud for the gospel, bless others today. Have a great weekend. Hope to see you Sunday, and if not, Monday.